Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Gonna give you guys an update on my stat tracking experiment for Hockey Ultimate Team. If you haven't watched prior videos, go back and check those out. But essentially what I've been doing is tracking all of my stats in Division 1 Rivals, as well as my Hut Champs games. That's all I'm playing. No squad battles, no doing the matchmaking glitch, anything like that. So I'm playing against the better players that are around my skill level. And here are all the stats that we've tracked. Now, we're through about 50 games into this. I tracked my first 30 games. I think that that's a big enough sample size, and now we're on to the second 30 after making those initial changes. And there are some things I'm starting to notice with my gameplay, at least at this stage of NHL. Obviously, things are going to change as the year goes along because all of the cards get 99 attributes, and then unfortunately, just Hockey Ultimate Team kind of changes quite a bit in terms of its gameplay, and it's usually not very good. That being said, let's dive into all of the stats so far as we get closer to that 60th game. All right, guys, now I'm also going to share this document. I finally got it to the point where I'm pretty happy with it, and I've set up some formulas. Man, it has been a long time since I've used Excel or anything like that, since like college, so it took me a little while, but we figured it out. Thanks you to everyone in chat on Twitch to help me out with this. But yeah, we've got everything that figures out shooting percentage, as well as save percentage, all of that. It's all done automatically, so you guys can go ahead. Down below there will be a link, and then you'll just have to fill it out. I probably will make like just a generic one that you guys can go ahead and do, but for right now, I'll give you guys access to mine. You can just copy it. So we're through 21 games, and again, down here, you'll see my first 30 compared to my second 30. And the one thing I want to point out is that, so I made these changes. We're through 21 games since I made my first initial round of changes. Here are all the stats from my first 30 games where I struggled. I literally went 16, 12, and 2 in champs as well as Division 1 Rivals, and I really did not perform all that well offensively, whereas Connor McDavid had 23 points. He was my leading scorer in 30 games. So flip ahead to the first 21 in this. I'm 17-4, so clearly, no matter what, I haven't changed my strategies. I'm literally just putting players where it looks like they are excelling, or at least for myself. And I think that's what this whole experiment is kind of highlighting, is that everyone is going to play slightly different. Everyone's got different tendencies. You can say that all of the goals are the same, that's fine, but how you get to those goals are going to be different for almost every single player, and especially just how you play specifically. Now, there's a couple things that I have now just come to realization that no matter what, I need to move away from. First is scoring from my defensemen. Now, I have been a pretty big proponent of 1T being something that is pretty important. It's the only way to score from the point. My man Kesso, co-host on my podcast, is one of the better players at it. He swears by Zach Werenski and all of those players that have even silver 1T. He scores a lot of D-to-D one-timers. I don't know what it is. There is something that in my gameplay where D-to-D one-timers will just not go in for me, and it's not just me. I think that I'm represent a large portion of the player base where D-to-D one-timers are just down in total for scoring. I know a lot of people will say that they score a lot, and the few of you that do, that's phenomenal. Keep doing that, and I think that if that's the case, you need to lean into that and have some offensive abilities on your defenseman. You take a look here. I've scored 4 goals in my defenseman in 21 games total. I've taken 92 shots. That's a 0.04% scoring or shooting percentage. Like, that is absurd to me. I am just going to completely avoid it. I have 1T on Coburn as well as Hedman. It just does not happen for me. I'm just going to give that up. Whatever it is, I don't understand how. I'm a pretty good player, and last year I scored quite a few D-to-D one-timers. It's just not working in NHL 22 for me. I'm out. I'm out on that. I don't know what it is, but D-to-D one-timers just do not go in for me. So I'm moving on from just taking as many shots as I do with my defensemen, specifically with left-handed defensemen. Now, I do need to say that scoring with left-handed defensemen is far easier than it is with righties from the point, so still keep that in mind. And again, that's just, I'm not succeeding with it, but the players that I do among the top end of the game, they do. Righties just don't score nearly as much when you're taking D-to-D one-timers. So that is one of the big changes that I'm going to make. You can see the shooting percentage down here. Adam Fox, obviously, on my third pairing, doesn't see the ice at all. He's got 5 shots on goal and 1 goal, and I believe it was a wrister. So that being said, that is going to be one of my biggest changes here. So 1T is going to be scrapped. The other thing that I'm noticing is I'm not getting a ton of hits, especially from my forwards. As you see up here, these are the hits per game that I've tracked. On defensemen, it's clearly more. What I'm going to look out for is defensemen with truculence, because I really rely on bumping players off the puck, and something that I've noticed as the game has gone further, more and more players are getting like line A or bigger players, or even just 6-foot players that have 99 balance. I'm going to be on the lookout for at least silver truculence on almost all, at least in my top four. Other than, well, obviously Coburn and Hedman aren't going anywhere. So really Burns and Petro, I'm going to be looking to try and get truculence on them, because clearly all of my hits are coming from defensemen, and I think that's going to help me improve getting the puck back in the defensive zone, because my forwards, they just don't hit, so there's no reason to put, any emphasis on that, and my defensemen aren't scoring, so obviously I can remove one T from there because it's just not working anyways. Among forwards, if you take a look at my first 30 games, my first line of Kyrou, Primo, and Duchesne, they were a +1 in total, and they really didn't have all that great of offense for me. I mean, 16 points was my leading scorer on my first line with Kyrou. Primo had 12 in 20 games. I changed things up about 20 or 10 games in because Primo did come out, so he was still pretty good. But then Duchesne was just awful in that position on the wing. Flip ahead to now, and my first line has been quite good. I mean, McDavid moved up to the first line. This McDavid card, there's something about him. I talked about it in that custom skating video. There's something about this card that just plays better than all the stats indicate. I mean, Duchesne and McDavid are awfully similar in terms of build and skating, as well as Kyrou, and they just don't score nearly the same amount. So 19 points for my man McDavid on the first line. He's almost a point per game player. And then Primo and Laine. Laine has cooled off for me. I'm not sure why. He is still by far the player that I hold on to the puck with. But as you can see here, my plus-minus through 20 games were doing much better than I was. My first line is performing as it should be compared to my first 30 games. So that's something to pay attention to. I think I finally figured out what I want on my first line. Primo is an unbelievable center. You flip ahead over here, 70% on the draws. He's got a 34% shooting percentage. Close quarters has been great. And obviously I'm shooting with Primo. I'm not really getting any assists with him, so that's fine. And yeah, Laine, I'm going to look to hold on to the puck, maybe take some more shots with him. He's shooting quite a bit for me, but just not going in. But McDavid is picking up for that. So McDavid's been awesome offensively for me. Moving on to my second line. This was probably the biggest takeaway from the first 30 games, is that I had to just get that meta mindset out of my head. Because if you look at my first 30 games, it was, we had Gretzky, Barzal, and McDavid down here, and they were far better. But after my first 10 games, this was actually my fourth line. Obviously, McDavid wasn't on there, but Gretzky and Barzal were on my fourth line. Because when you look at my lineup and the cards I have available to me, they just aren't nearly as good, or they don't look as good if you are going off of whatever determines the best way to play competitively. I put Barzal up here. He's got 19 points in 21 games for me. Like, he is absurd. He's a +20. I don't know what it is, but this X Factor Barzal is so good for me. He eliminated Nathan McKinnon's X Factor from my lineup, and he's playing ahead of 99 Kyrou and Lemieux, and for good reason. I don't know what it is, guys. He plays so fast. I score them. I set plays up with him all the time. And then same with Gretzky. When you consider my other centerman, like Duchesne is about the same size, only 99 everything, and then Jokinen, who's what you would consider to be like the right build for a centerman, Gretzky just outperforms. I don't know what it is, and if I didn't track these stats, I would have never figured that out. And then Rantanen as well, playing ahead of Hurdle and Kane. Just a bigger player. Bigger wingers for me just haven't. I felt throughout the year they weren't really all that impactful for me. I thought I wanted speed, but Rantanen has been great for me. I mean, you see that here. My second line is +20, +13, +18. Like, they are dominating whoever I'm playing against, and I'm not going to move them up to my first line. I think a lot of people might think that, but you have to remember that they're going up against my opponent's second line for the most part, because line changes are awful and you can't really line match in this game. And my first line is going up against their best players, so clearly there's an advantage here, and I'm just going to keep that. Now, my bottom six, through about 10 games, was pretty piss poor. I'm not going to lie. And if you go down here to my first 30, my third and fourth line actually performed pretty well relatively compared to my second and first line. But it looks like almost all my offenses now, there's a big drop off here. You see the 5 points for Kyrou in 21 games. He's a 99 overall, and he's a -4. I don't know what it is about Kyrou, but he didn't perform well on my first line, didn't perform well on my third line. There's a real possibility that he's going to go down to my fourth line and Lemieux might come up there, but Lemieux hasn't been all that great, but I'll talk about that in just a little bit. And then there was someone in my chat. I had Hurdle as my centerman, but if you go over here through the first like 5 or 6 games, he was 17 faceoffs, 4 wins, and I'm very good at faceoffs. Like there is one thing that I'm exceptional at, and that's faceoffs. I love the strategy. I've always been really good at faceoffs, and he was at 24%. So obviously that wasn't going to work. So I flipped him and put Hurdle on the wing, Duchesne at center, and then as you can see here, he's got 56% on the draws, which isn't all that great, but it's fine. And then he blew up because he really only had like 3 points in 10 games. He's got 15 and 21 now, 10 goals. Duchesne is just cooking for me. So he is clearly at center for me, and which is weird. Again, I think that Duchesne's build plays a little bit better on the wing when you consider, the competitive way to play this game. Not for me. I don't know what it is. Hurdle as well, 4 points in 21 games, and he's holding on to the puck quite a bit. Hurdle, while one of my favorite players and cards in this game, I'm going to probably move down. I think that he just isn't performing well. His card doesn't feel as great as some of the other ones or what he looks like he should, or I might have to activate some abilities on him to try and get him going. But Kyrou is the big takeaway here. He's been awful for me. And then my fourth line, we've got Lemieux, Jokinen, and Kane. Jokinen is a very important card, guys, because especially for GWC, or even if you're just trying to get better at the game, you need to have one centerman in this game now, especially with 99 faceoffs, where everyone essentially has 99 faceoffs, that has gold quick draw. You need at least one. And the reason for it is because if you're in the defensive zone, if you have 99 faceoffs and gold quick draw, there's basically a 65% chance that you're going to win that draw. And that's huge because you eliminate, all of the chances with gold quick draw and you have 99 faceoffs. So if you tie up, more than likely you're going to win that draw as well. So make sure that you have one centerman that has that. And I honestly wanted to move him up. I think he plays really well for me, but he's not better than Duchesne. He's not better than Gretzky right now. So he is going to be my fourth line. And that's fine. I play him anytime I have a defensive zone draw, and for the most part, I win them. And then I have Kane. I put the Moments Kane back in the lineup because in my first 30 games, in the first 10 games, he scored 7 points in 10 games, but then the Primo came out, and I just wanted to put Primo in my lineup, and he performed so well. That was on my first line, however. On my fourth line, just not playing all that well, and I'm wondering if that's because, maybe other players' fourth lines are a little bit bigger. Maybe not as skilled. I'm not sure what it is, but he's just not performing as well as I would like him to on that fourth line because in the first 30 games, my fourth line was one of my best because my team is so good that I was clearly taking advantage of other players' fourth line. So what I want to do, in all honesty, is maybe get rid of Kane or even get rid of Hurdle and mess that around and find a different forward to go in there, another left-handed forward. Maybe Nash. I think Nash might be a good add to my team, especially considering how good Ranton has been for me. So that might be the player that I'm going to look out for. In net, Rene, an 80% save percentage, which is actually kind of odd because I did so much worse in this first 30 games, and he had an 83% save percentage. Rene this year, but anything over 80 is fine. And again, as you see here, I'm 17-4 through the first 21 games. So those are the takeaways that I'm going to look for going into this, guys. Let me know if you've been enjoying this or if you've been tracking your stats and what you've noticed. I think this is a really fun way to at least have some more fun with NHL. It's ridiculous that we can't track these kinds of things in game, and it is what it is, though. So, yeah, so we're going to look to get rid of all offensive abilities on defensemen, try and find some truculence defensemen as we go through, and at 30 games, I'll make some big lineup decisions. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.